Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast with me, Imperial Dane. We have for you today a 1 versus 1 on Sturzdorf. Yes, indeed, Sturzdorf. We have only had one previous match on this, I do believe. A rather nice urban map, or at least industrial map. Somewhere in Germany, I'd imagine, if one looks at the name. And in the southern corner we have Fox Battalion 2011, no commander name, just Fox Battalion. British 30th Corps moving into the Ruhr district, ready to cut off Germany from its last industrial district in 1945, being held off by Gulcasa of Kampfgruppe Gulcasa, with the remainders of whatever he can scrape together to hold back the British for another day in the defense of Germany. Now then, let's get this match started, and in the meanwhile we'll go over the particulars. This being an industrial map, it's of course going to be densely populated with buildings, and it's also going to be a bit difficult for certain troops like Fox Grenadiers to get a proper line of fire established, since there's so many buildings in fact blocking lines and other, well, obstructive things like this huge pile of debris and such. So it's going to be a bit difficult. And we see the recon section moving directly for this munitions point, while the Schwimmwagen under Gulcasa is moving out, and Panzer Grenadiers with the Gewehr 43 are also moving out. In terms of resources, we have a nice spread out from the different ends. Munitions of high yield nearby, a higher yield fuel point being quite apart from both players, and some other high or lesser high yield fuel points as well. Nothing really close to a 5-point for both, although it's not a symmetrical division of resources in fact, and some advantage in fuel I suspect are for the lower corner, while the upper corner or the upper side will have higher munitions. Anyhow, no real fighting. The munitions point has been seized, and we see the headquarters command truck moving up to secure it, establishing a forward position for the British, while a lieutenant is out securing territory for Fox Battalion, although I'm pretty sure that would be, well, according to the alphabet, a 5th Battalion. Not entirely sure that would exist, but what the devil. Can't be fully historical, and we aren't, so let's just roll with it. Of what infantry division I can't say, but perhaps 27th? Or, I don't know. We'll see. Not the major point here, although the British are holding on. The Germans not really fighting either, seizing territory for the fatherland and securing this small industrial town, which I'm not entirely sure is providing anything useful directly towards the war effort. Just looks like construction materials for the most part, but I can't say. Lots of abandoned crates, numerous Opel Blitzes left behind with something, barrels for example, another with a canvas overlook, and another one. Not much here ultimately though, and we see a train just standing there, nothing else. And we see the Panzer Grenadiers are moving for the center, securing that. In the southern, the lieutenant is still moving ahead with territories, while numerous infantry sections are moving around here in the western half, securing this spot. Again, the Panzer Grenadier commander Gulcasa is not intent on moving his Kampfgruppe in to deal with this at this moment. Looks like we might actually get some fighting now. The British infantry sections are moving towards the center as well. Let's see how this reacts. First fire opened. Panzer Grenadiers seeking cover in one of these barracks. This is probably some sort of prison camp, or just workers' barracks, I can't say. Entirely up to specs on how things like that were done. Further, Panzer Grenadiers being equipped with Gewehr 43s and moving in. The recon section for some reason standing out in the open, not exactly the best move, in particular when dealing with garrison buildings with numerous open windows in fact. And we see a Bren carrier dashing by with a infantry section on board, enjoying the ride I suspect, and can actually seize territory from the Bren carrier itself. And for some curious reason though, the infantry inside it won't actually take any damage. For the most part, sniper fire and such won't actually touch it, whereas in Panzer Elite half-track one sniper shot and you have 2 dead Panzer Grenadiers. Seems a bit off, but there you go. British themselves now also securing themselves in the administrative building of this little spot, I suspect. Opening fire on the Panzer Grenadiers, who also hold up in a building. Further Panzer Grenadiers moving in to support the fighting. Looks like the recon section is worse off, although now the Bren carriers moving in to support things. Infantry section still dropping out now, so they can get a proper spread of fire on the Panzer Grenadiers. Further infantry sections going down. And we see that Gulcasa's recessed anti-tank grenades in the exact same moment, launching 2 at the Bren carrier, blowing it up, forcing a rout on the bridges. Certainly sometime I've seen anti-tank grenades used, and certainly not this early. A bold move from Gulcasa, and certainly unorthodox, I'd say. And also using the logistic company for something else than just getting the next tier of buildings like the Panzerjäger command, so one can certainly only admire that move, although how it will work out from we'll have to see. Lieutenant left behind enemy lines, making a dash through the Panzer Grenadiers, barely making out of it, taking a lot of damage. Looks like while the British are setting up a mortar emplacement to protect the headquarters command truck and provide fire support on the Panzer Elite Panzer Grenadier positions of Kampfgruppe Gulcasa, who are holding out here in the work camp, setting up a forward barracks to support their efforts, slowing down the lieutenant a bit, hoping to take him out. It's a bit of a trick some people will find very, very cheap, and they'll certainly not like you if you do it. Personally, I can't say it's the nicest trick either, but I do believe there'll be something done with it. In fact, the next patch, where the suppressive volley from the Panzer Grenadier Gewehr 43 will be changed so it actually suppresses targets, and slow will be for a much shorter period of time, meaning it's not going to be of much use on retreat. And we see a munitions half-track. This is certainly also a very rare beast on the battlefields of Company Affairs, partly because it can't really do that much to actually support. It can make abilities recharge faster for Panzer Elite infantry and vehicles, which can certainly be advantageous, but it's not really a reason to get it, although next patch I do believe the fuel cost has been taken away. Some other things has also been tried, but some has been reverted again, and it can also lay down mines, I do believe rather cheap mines as well. 15 munitions if my memory does not deceive me, although that might actually be the case. But it can't really do much more than that. It's a bit of a circumstantial support unit. If perhaps it had some machine guns, perhaps to make it a bit more useful, I'd certainly suspect it'd be used a lot more. But beyond that, it's not really of much use, I am afraid. Infantry can't I reinforce from it either, which could certainly also make it more useful. We'll have to see what Relic might do in a further patch, but so far taking away the fuel cost for it has been would certainly be a boon. And we see the British infantry moving upwards. We now see a Bren carrier with the Vickers 30 caliber machine gun opening fire on the Panzer Elite, who are now themselves standing out in the open again. Bad move. We also see defensive operations and increased squad sizes. Research was certainly going to increase their longevity and make them much more sturdy troops on the battlefield, able to withstand a few more casualties. But again, you don't want to stand out in the open, at least not when there are buildings, perfectly useful buildings nearby to support the efforts. Anti-tank grenades being locked. Looks like this Panzer Grenadier team will have to get out. No, a cut down completely, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Panzer Grenadiers. Was it 5? I'm not entirely sure. Some seem to be vanishing, but 5 to 6 Panzer Grenadiers dead. That's a huge loss, in particular when one team itself is lost. The munitions half-track is hanging around and now receiving armor-piercing rounds for the Vickers from the Bren carrier's Vickers, forcing it to pull back. Looks like the lid on the back has been forced open. Moving not too far away though, apparently just deciding wants to support the British, slowly encroaching on the Kampfgruppe Gulcasa's positions. The Bren carrier suppressing the Panzer Grenadiers with its machine guns, and in fact pinning down some of the Panzer Grenadiers now. Not a sustainable position for the Panzer Grenadiers, I'd say, but for some reason he still holds on. moving the Panzer Grenadiers into a building, resetting their state of suppression, which is certainly useful. But at the same time, if someone were to, for example, get supercharged rounds, this could easily become a death trap. And now we see sappers have moved ahead to repair the Bren carrier with machine gun. So that's certainly some coordination from Fox Battalion's troops. And now these sappers are moving away. No lieutenant supervision though, to actually help things along, so they're going to be moving away around quite reluctantly. Incendiary grenade going off on the building, hitting too far though, and the British move in safe and sound, although having taken some wounds and casualties. They might need to get out of there anyway soon. Sappers not doing anything, could for example be moving here, scaring this off, taking some other points. So yeah, a bit off. Lieutenant hanging around nearby, but now looks like the infantry section will be pulling out. Fresh Panzer Grenadiers moving out to replace the one team lost. Gulcasa hanging on very stubbornly, constantly equipping his Panzer Grenadiers with Gewehr 43s. For what reasons I'm not entirely sure, suspecting he'll probably try to increase the damage output, although currently it's not by a huge deal and certainly a bit marginal, but still better than nothing. Although with the next patch it will be much more useful, so that's certainly nice. But so far Gulcasa has succeeded in keeping the pressure up on the British. The British constantly seizing this administrative building, which does provide a good field of coverage, plenty of windows, meaning it can cover all sides quite nicely, and you can easily have more infantry sections in it. Although again, if you get hit with incendiary grenades, it can also easily get very costly. So it's a bit of a trade-off you'll of course have to make if you decide to do this. Munitions half tank moving forwards again, and we see a Stuart light tank, Stuart M3/M5 light tank of the American armed forces, although also quite often used by the British, and was in fact a main tank used by the British during the fighting in Africa alongside the Crusader, until they could get their hands on the German tank. Numerous incendiary grenades going off on the building. Perhaps Fox Battalion should reconsider sending its troops into these buildings this close to Panzer Grenadiers, when they obviously have so many incendiary grenades. But now the Stuart tank is moving in for a rear assault, completely surpassing things, getting hit with anti-tank grenades because it was too close, and no attempt at using canister shot, which could possibly have done a lot of damage, but it's now forced to make a retreat from the situation. Could easily end very badly for the tank, but instead it managed to dodge all the anti-tank grenades, and there is indeed the weakness of the anti-tank grenades. They can certainly do a lot of damage if they hit, but then they have to hit. If not, there's no guidance, no anything, and they'll just miss, meaning it's a waste of munitions. So it's rather something you need. It's more suited for urban combat and close quarters, like for example here. But when as soon as there's any chance of maneuver,